for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome in this sacred space with me here again. So I have another important, super important topic prepared today, and it's going to be rather difficult for me to stay serious and in that receptive motherly energy because I'm just so elevated today. I have not actually been sleeping for over a week now, so today was a record-breaking deal because I woke up before 3 a.m. and I'm awake since then, early rise. And I know it's intense when you don't get to sleep much because there's such intense cosmic waves happening, and I'm constantly burning with heat and I can't do much because of that tiredness, and it's like this fatigued feeling, but there's an extreme amount of what's coming through at the same time. So these are strong initiations and we're being like pushed, like really pushed over the edge at this time. And so the only thing that's really good that comes out of this experience is because I'm seeing these beautiful morning skies. Sometimes it's pink, sometimes it's golden yellow, sometimes it's bluish. And I have not been witnessing that in the Alps because, you know, it's all peaky and pointy and you can't see much of the open space. I have a really beautiful view over my window, so it's amazing. So today, I want to go deeper into this matter of love because we've talked a lot about love and the Christ love and then the human love and how this gets to meet. And in my recent 2 Illumined Union reading updates on Patreon, we've actually talked about how this is related to ascending the inner child because it's the most crucial aspect that's happening at this time. It's the fusion of the organic human and that which is this higher light cosmic intelligence that we all have and all belong to. And it's sort of an interesting fusion, right? And we're kind of needing to trust that flow. And so we're going to talk about today how to trust love, because you might have an idea of what love is. For you, love might be a feeling. You might feel love towards someone or towards something, or you express it creatively. But there is a deeper element of love that's coming through at this time, which is simply trusting the flow of life force, trusting life, because trusting love is actually nothing else but trusting life. And I know that many people think they do, but they don't. Because so many of people right now, they're in these heavy life circumstances that they don't see a way out of. And I always get back to the story from Saint Germain, who explained this through his own example of being trapped in a crystal for, I don't know, thousands of years. And he said, I was trying to get out and I couldn't. The moment I fully accepted it, bam, right, he was out. And it's kind of like that deep acceptance into love and surrendering to love and trusting that it has us, that it holds us, because we still, through these inner wounded child aspects that weren't fully completely healed and resolved into the illumined light, we're feeling those ego contractions, these fear-based reactions to the notions of change. And I'll talk about this as we go along the video, but you know, sometimes it can just show up as a fear of the unknown, a fear of life, or maybe a new chapter, maybe just fear of something that's so good. But still there's fear because of that control that we have over ourselves. You know, I have this vision of like someone who has so much passion, but it's all bottled up inside. And it's almost like they can't express it, so they're constantly controlling themselves and their body. Like, no, I can't do that. No, I can't express this way. And eventually we all know what that brings, right? The soul can move through the physical form. It simply can't, because the human ego, through all those contractions and basically these repulsions, right? It's kind of creating this deflection and this defense mechanism. It's basically like playing ping pong with life instead of swimming, right? Swimming. Sometimes swimming is with the flow, sometimes it's, you know, through the current, against the flow, it doesn't matter. But it's motion, it's momentum, which is the spiral of life. It's constant movement. The problem is that when we don't trust life, we actually don't trust love. So there's a stagnancy to our life, to our circumstances that, you know, we like to think it's something that comes from the outside, but it's a lack of our inner movement. It's all that we bottle up and suppress, and all the feelings we simply are not allowing ourselves to live. And for me, it's difficult to be with people, and at the same time I have to be with people so that I can heal, because I have a deep tendency as a healer to witness those parts. I just realized that today because I had a deep communion with the mother, and I'll talk about this later. And it was almost like this realization that when I first started awakening, I was just in this vertical self, this galactic human. I'm not from here, and I'm seeing things like not as others are. And I had issues with seeing people and their issues, and why are they like this? And now with all that I've matured into, and my death experiences, like I died so many times in this life, you wouldn't even believe if I told you all of them. It's like it opens you up, and there's a wisdom of cultivating that love that comes with surrendering. And I had to surrender even to the idea that I'm dying, that I'm going to die, and maybe that's fine. And I've asked the divine to take me, and I'm fine. I've accepted it. And I didn't at the end. Because when you release the fear of the worst, something opens up, and we're opening these corridors of light. This is trusting love at its finest, that the love will carry us through. That's why in the previous video I talked about the need not just to be within the light, but to cultivate love, this family love, this familiar feeling, the sense of the mother, the words ma, that resonates within us. And so all that this is triggering to the surface at this time, and I'm seeing a lot of people are having tremendous difficulties at this time. It's almost like you've bottled up so much that you have this deep knowing that something needs to change, and you are the instigator for that change, but still you don't know where to begin because so much has piled up. Right? And there's another element of what I want to talk about, which is curiosity. Curiosity keeps us in this open state, because the moment you stop being curious in life, like, what could this bring up? What could this open up? And you go instead into this limitation of the mind that tells you, well, nothing. Even in advance, you convince yourself, nothing. Life is just as it is. You're being told this story, and then you're just repeating it as the system is reflecting it to you. So we're needing to learn to deflect the system and turn into the wisdom of the mother, which is organic intelligence that you often see me talk about, and not just talk about, but embodying it, right? So for example, today I had 3 very, very difficult days. There was so much happening in my body. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. I was feeling this depletion, and it's like this, almost like this fatal non-movement. And it kind of made me feel in that, when we go into this human experience, we will feel both ends of the polarities being expressed through us. And this feeling of despair, like, I can't break through this with my love. And I'm the kind of being, I don't like to get no's and answers. So sometimes I'm going to flip cards and there would be a no or something repetitive. And I don't like to get no's and answer, because it's not something I believe in. There is no final train leaving the station. As long as I'm alive here, and I have body, I have an embodiment, I'm going to do all that it takes. I'm going to do everything in my power that there will be liberation of soul and the return to love, especially for those beings who are wanting that, and they are calling for assistance, and they are ready. Maybe they're not physically demonstrating that yet, or they're kind of still withholding, or they're kind of contracting from that, or they're feeling victimized in any way, or they're feeling, well, I'm just alone in this, because it's not the truth. Remember, we can all get that leg up, but we never ask. People forget to ask for this assistance, which is also part of trusting love, trusting life. And we don't always have all the answers, but the divine guidance kind of always pushes in that right direction, right? So as long as there's curiosity, there's openness and willingness. But in the previous video, we've talked about how if you can't even imagine it, how will you make it into your new reality? And we're all here, not just to have one lifetime experience, just like previous ones. We're doing a synthesis. We're here, as the Divine Mother said to me today, that we're creating a masterpiece of our own life. We're truly here to create a masterpiece. It doesn't matter whether your life would last 20 years or less, but still, you're here to create a fine artwork that is your life. That's your greatest legacy. It's not just what you teach to others, but it's how you live, how you get to choose through that passionate fusion, and how you show up every day. Like today, I don't know what happened. Something just shifted. And like I said, in these previous 3 days, it was such a difficult stage because we are riding those waves, and it will get difficult too. But then there will always be a new opening, and that's why I never take no as an answer. And sometimes my guides are very tricky, you know, my family of light, and they're going to show me a no if I'm asking something just to see my reaction. And they're going to be like, yeah, she didn't fall for it. She still went through. She still broke through. And it's just my nature. It's how I am. I will do everything that it takes. I'm going to fight until the end. And a lot of you are those fighters. And I'm fighting for many souls here, not just for myself. Because remember, we are facing the most difficult trial of what we call this Antichrist versus the Christ. And yet at the same time, we're needing to do it playfully, because it's our inner child that already has all the answers. It knows what it wants. It knows what it needs. It knows what it loves. It knows how it loves. But imagine living years of not pouring that love out. Imagine what that does to the body. Imagine what that does to the soul, because there's no more growth in that stagnancy. So trusting life is that every day you choose yourself little by little, even if you think you can't do big steps in the moment. And that curiosity, that openness, that you don't block the energies and saying, oh, like pushing away, which will eventually, I always see this game, you know, when you kind of like you use, what's the word? I don't know right now, but you're kind of smashing energy, but it comes up bottled up, and then on the other side, and it's kind of like, hey, I'm still here. You just kind of try to move me. You try to trick me. It doesn't work that way, and it really doesn't. Okay, so I was, because I was up so early, I'm waking up literally with the goats right now. That's what I'm saying to myself. And it's like, fine, you know, and it would be better if I could sleep during the day. It's not my nature. It's not my best trait. So I get as much as I can. And then if I don't, I just don't. So I'm up early before dawn. And then I have lots of time for contemplation and my Zen moments. And today I just wanted to be with the mother. I wanted to be with Aurea. And I asked a lot of questions. So I want to go back to the video in which I talked about, it was an urgent update and important message for all of you beautiful beings of love, fighting not just for yourself, but you also know their souls that you came to uplift and help on this journey as well. And you're kind of intertwined. And so I was communing with Aurea today to give me some guidance, because I can get so devastated if I'm thinking there's no movement, it's not happening, you know. So today she came through and she was so loving. And she said to me, you know, sometimes even if you don't see changes in the physical, let's say the personality does not allow this to occur, because there's still things to heal, let's say in the mental body, emotional body, physical body, all these bodies that still have pent-up energies inside. And this is what is actually happening with all that fear that we can't even recognize when the body, let's say emotional body, is not awakened. And we think it's all fine on the surface, and we're living this life as it is, you know, as it presents itself. We're not guiding our life forward. It's apparently guiding us, right? The outside forces drive us instead of our life force from within. And so this fear can be bottled up and stored in many of these pockets of energies that are not expressed. So sometimes there would be a cultivation of love so extreme, and this is what happens with people in interaction with me. I would always trigger people first in this amazing upliftment and excitement because of the way I am and how they respond to my mischievous, playful, dynamic, tantric essence, and very open to life, just pure openness. And then fears would come up because that love is so intense at times. It would trigger because it dissolves the barriers around those rings where there's contraptions, right? There's these energies that store immense amounts of fear. So that comes up. Whoa, there's a can of worms, right? And trusting love means that we're going through these waves and stages, and even when it's difficult, love has us. But if we don't trust love, we don't trust life, we're just basically battling ourselves. We're fighting a war with ourselves. We're actually controlling ourselves. We're controlling our body. We're controlling how we think we're supposed to, you know, behave. And for me, let me tell you, the most difficult thing for me to witness is, I love everyone, but especially if I love someone deeply, to see them create self-suffering, like self-inflicted suffering, it's hurting me to the core. You know, when Jesus Christ said, all the suffering you feel, I feel through my compassion. I suffer as the world suffers. I have that same thing, because the Christ opens you up to not only what you believe is your self-love and your bubble, and that's the end of the world. No one else matters. Beings who are here as volunteers and here of assistance, we're always going to have that as our professional deficiency in a way. It's a curse, but it's also our greatest gift, a gift of life. And so the mother today was giving me this beautiful message that sometimes the change would happen at the soul level. And there's many souls being, I don't want to use that term, okay, to say rescued, because it sounds like someone else does something for you and it can happen, but it's not the truth. There is a lot of what we believe, you know, on the outside plane, you know, we're calling for these divine interventions in life. But these interventions first have to be played at the importance of the soul. We're fighting for these souls. Remember, I did that video. And the thing is that there needs to be an appropriate amount, a sufficient amount of light quotient, this life force, life intelligence, that sometimes the soul becomes deficient in through these earthly lifetimes, and it comes to a point where it's no longer able to self-sustain during that self-created purging. It like can't create this self-induced purging that, you know, when you're in your own divine intelligence, you know when to purge. Because if you don't purge, it will build up and it will eventually become like this huge boo-boo, this huge ghost. You know, we like to use the term ghosting right now. It's so popular, but we're actually ghosting ourselves with this, right? And hiding these things, and they're just growing. And we might not feel them physically, we suppress them, but they're growing in our subtle bodies, right? So this floodgate opens that up. And that is why sometimes when you would send an extreme amount of love to someone, it actually shocks them. You know, in the long run, it helps to alleviate these pains and these fears. But in the initial reaction, there is absolute shock. Because shock is, you know, when you're in your divine intelligence, shock is more experienced as awe, like that. You know, and you don't get overwhelmed easily. But people who get overwhelmed easily by things that don't even have to be difficult, maybe it's just purely loving, and it's like, it gives them this sense of pressure, feeling pressured into making choices perhaps, or changing something that they're not ready for in this moment, and that's fine. But the thing is, you know, eventually the soul will create more of that knocking, yeah? And if there is a lack of tendency to self-medicate through that self-induced purging, because this is when the soul is intelligent, it knows how to do that through the human form. But sometimes the human personality has become so burdened, it creates constant blocks that the soul eventually cannot reach this level anymore. So it just, these things just start piling up. And this is what Jesus Christ calls, you know, the burdened souls. And these are the beings that are now very important for us to help with this path of divine remembrance. And I'm sure those of you who feel you have, or you're also healers and working with others, you're getting sometimes these challenges, not with the people who come to you for sessions, but oftentimes also with the people you love the most and nearest and dearest to you. I had this all my life with my mother because it was so hard. I just knew I had to get to her and through her, and I just always had this deep desire. And it took years for her to actually witness her worst fears. It took years. And I don't know when the magic happened. Let me tell you that. I have a strong sense that my transgression actually opened her up to that extreme amount of love, which was always in her. But it activated it because she had to be with me and witness her child almost like dying. And she had to level up in the way she showed up with her love that was already there, that before was kind of vacant. It was always a little vacant, and I remember a time specifically, there was a period in her life when I constantly nagged her about it, and I was saying, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just wake up and feel inspired and passionate? You have so much beauty inside you. What's blocking you? And she was like this, nothing. Because it was a transitional period in her life, and that transition, when there's a deep purging of all that we believed about ourselves is happening, there's an intermediary stage. It's in between world stage that sometimes it's difficult, and this is the most difficult times. This is why now I feel a lot of people are in this stage, and everything they knew and they lived and their status quo, they know it's going to have to change, but it's still frightening to make that first step because it's a part of that regeneration. You know, today I got this card with the lava, The card is called Regeneration, and it's one of my favorite tarot decks. Oracle decks. And it has this lava, and lava, the sacred fire that just purges things, but it always renews life. It brings something that is needed. You know, with fire you have ash, and then you have certain micro elements that need to be there, present to nourish maybe the soil that has been depleted for such a long time. And we don't know this process. So even as humans, right, we all still have this control aspect, which believes that this needs to happen like this. And the inner child, when it's wounded, it will always try to heal others from that wounded perspective. It's not going to be from that spirit, neutral, just present with someone, just that pure, neutral, divine love, the absolute, allowing space for yourself and then them, if they want to reach you and be with you, in that sense, and assistance. But it's that wounded aspect that we all needed to look through. And I'm just going through this myself. This was my most major pattern in life. Such a deep desire to heal others, which of course came from my being, my light being. But it still needed to be integrated properly in this lifetime as a human being, that it would not get distorted along the way. That the healing comes from something that's needing to heal myself. And do it properly, because when you do it properly through love, healing is profound. And you have then the greatest gift of what the Christ calls, you know, when he says how he actually healed, he just merged his essence with the essence of the other. And in that merging, he could feel everything, all the deficiency, all that's blocked, all that being needs through their soul. And he helped to hold space for that to be cultivated and brought forth. And some souls chose that and some didn't. And he always says, it's not up to me, it's up to you, because then a being has to also choose it. But when the Divine Mother spoke to me today about this sense that the soul is now forefront, even if, let's say, a human self, that being who's kind of in between, right? The darkness is still fighting to pull them in a very low frequency state, then, you know, there would be an intervention. But at the same time, that intervention first started happening at the soul level. So there would be a tremendous amount of assistance and fusion. And I could feel that. And when you work with people in that way, right, or just in general, you feel you're a vessel, and sometimes you're going through these deep waves of purging, and it's not even yours. That's what volunteer souls go through. The healing is a sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice of love. It's not of the mind. And those aspects still exist. We need to address them. But when you trust love, you realize that it's just here to create beauty, right? It's kind of trusting the power of divine light intelligence and the beauty of love together, because they are always existing in that togetherness. And for me, let me tell you, through the wisdom of my years and going through so many deaths, and nothing else matters to me anymore in my life. Everything that matters is just to be in that space, to exude that love, to cultivate it, but also learning to trust it. If I'm not trusting it, I'm going to start doubting myself. I'm going to maybe pick up the doubts from others and those insecurities still there, and then I'm going to take them as my own, and then I'm not going to be able to do my healing work. It will affect me. That's why Spirit always shows me you need to be an offering of the greater vessel, but then cut the cords when it comes to the human level. It's not always an easy process. It's something difficult to master at times, but a lot of us know how to do that. I'm just saying that. I'm putting it out there. And surrendering to love is truly now the return to the heart of the mother. Not everyone right now, as you know, on our planet will return to the grace of the mother's heart. There's still younger souls, let's call like that want the experience of rebellion. You know, a rebel soul is the one that does not want to be unified with divine will. They think their personal free will has more to say and more to provide them. It's not the case. That's what we have, this what I call the astral karmic wheel for so many souls. They keep on spinning around that wheel because they're in that looping, right? It's basically repeating similar experiences throughout lifetimes and not much changing. And eventually it just gets more difficult and more difficult. So there is what the Mother Spirit showed me. This, I mentioned in a Patreon as well, there's a great divine outpouring of dispensations of light that many of us who came here to assist and be in the human form and the human bodies, we've actually came here and assessed the situation, and we basically, what Spirit calls, petitioned for these specific beings. We were petitioning for them, which means we're asking our higher aspects, these spirits that work through us. We're asking, can this happen? Can this happen on the behalf of these beings? I see a potential there. And of course, then they have to make the choices because they have a clearer vision too. But they're also asking us in return to keep the spirit of the inner human child alive and joyful and youthful, not go so much into this with serious nature, because there's aspects of us that do this work in spirit and they know how to do that completely. And we have to trust those aspects. And when the human aspects want to have control over the processes, and so many people are, they're fixated on the outcomes, like what's supposed to happen, and then they can't surrender. I'm seeing that a lot in the so-called New Age twin communities, and it's always like you and your person and that person, and they're going through this, and you and what you need to do and what they need to do. It's so little still known about trusting this heart of God, the heart of Divine Mother in us, because it's there. And when you're in that love, you would always know what to do. You'd always get the proper guidance, because you're simply saying no to that intellect, which is how I see it, like that Satan and coming into paradise and saying, look, here's the apple of it's not an apple of evil. It's basically the first inception. It's an apple of knowledge, which means, hey, go and move into awareness until you think this journey is all about becoming more aware, and forget about the love, right? The first two lovers in the Garden of Eden, and then, eating that apple. And it's that temptation. It's that constant diversion of focus elsewhere that is not into the heart of love. And we'll still experience people who come and would say, well, I want the more masculine path. Of course, go for it. You don't have to. Not everyone, as I explained, will come into the union, the heart of the mother, and the divine intelligence of what we call divine light, or God, infinite light exuding. So basically, this Illumined Union I talk about so much is needing to bring all these aspects up to the surface, healing this inner wounded child, releasing all control. Like I said, it's the most difficult to see how we're controlling our bodies to not feel pleasure, and then feeling guilt after that pleasure. Maybe we have it a little bit and then immediately we feel guilty. That's not the devil at work. That guilt is coming from the denial of the intelligence of life, that through you it knows what it wants. It knows how to express itself. And you might say, well, some beings don't, right? So they walk into temptation and they're using or abusing things like, let's say, sexual power, and they're turning white magic, basically white light, into dark magic. And yes, all these things exist. In Atlantean times, we had this fall. It all became about knowledge and the abuse of power. But true power is the power of remembrance, the cultivation of life force through love and light intelligence as one. When you're not doing it in unity, there will always be a part of you that can get hijacked through what I call this darkness, because you've stopped trusting life. When you stop trusting life, there's always going to be an aspect coming from the outside making choices for you. And as a human, because as a human you have a blocked vision, if you're not fully open up into illumined light realms, you might get hijacked and you might think this is my best choice, and you're just thinking they're your choices, but it's actually a collective energy of something else that is not you, choosing through you. And that's, for me, the worst thing to feel and experience through the souls, that they're somehow unable to cultivate that which is their true self, their true presence, and actually experience this blissful happiness in their life. It hurts me. It literally hurts my body, And I can't imagine how, let's say, someone would live their life for years and years in this self-deprived, isolated state. I lived 1 year, but only due to outside circumstances that have cut off these natural vortices within me and created a false imprints and false vortices, like these overlays. So I couldn't have this access to my instant magic. I felt like for 1 year so void, like absent of this. I died, not just because of the physical pain. That hurt me more, beloveds. That deprivation of my true self, that my magic, my inner magic, hurt me so much. Imagine living like on your, in your castle, and being like I say, right, this being on top of your world. And then this kind of collapsing like a house of cards, and you can't reach it, you can't access it anymore. Because I know how it feels. And maybe that happened for me as well for a reason, so I can better have understanding how it is for most humans. Because for me, it was always natural. Since my awakening in 2010, it was like, I just knew I was just going like this, like a fireball, right? How we explain it. Until this. So in the beginning stages, I was still questioning things and I was still judgmental because I was in that state. Well, how can someone act like this? How can they not see? It took a lot of heavy life experiences for me to see what it actually means to be in the true state of compassion and graceful presence. And also learn to cultivate joy even when there's suffering present. Let's say someone's suffering and you don't pick it up. You're actually the one needing to stay in the uplifted part. So these aspects are always interchanging, right? It's how it's happening, because this game of polarity that's been extremely incepted with duality, right? That apple of first temptation, which was not temptation for the good. It still plays itself out constantly through people's lives, and the soul then can't fully reach through. And everyone who's not fully in their blissful presence knows that there's an aspect of that hijacked, not fully self-realized reality that's not their own. And also being loyal to things that they believe they're needing to be loyal to, and it's false. It's false loyalties. Loyalty, in a true sense, is devotion, which first has to come and be for you, choosing your life, choosing yourself. And the heart knows what the self is. It never forgets. It's just layers of that which makes it kind of impossible to be reached and broken through. But the heart knows, nonetheless. And so I'm saying this compassion is sort of cultivated through years of experience, and you have a better grasp on people and how it's difficult for souls to walk through. And it makes you a better guide. It makes you a better, it's not just about being a better person. It's about being a better embodier of love, because you've learned to trust it. And when you trust love, you know that love will have to carry us through difficult experiences as well, because if they've been piled up, let's say during many lifetimes, they will have to be revisited, and like a spiral went like this, then you have to unwind it in the other direction. But you will get to the core in the middle of that spiral, which began all life. You began as a pure spiral. You didn't begin with the issues and challenges and problems. So sometimes the solution is much easier than we initially might think that it is. It's more organic. Okay, so we're going to also do a prayer, but first I want to do a little card reading, because I want to show you this, one of my favorite decks. Again, I'm saying my favorite, they're all my favorites. The Art of Love Tarot. And I did this reading. I was in many hours in this communion, and I got many answers. And I want to show you, because it was almost like these cards were telling me, a story. And then I realized it's 13 of them that fell out. 13, the number of source, the goddess, the great mother, for this universe, 13-dimensional space, all that. So I'm going to show you first the cards. I'm going to tell you how I received that as a story unfolding. And I'm seeing there's a very difficult time now. It's kind of like we're being squeezed. Our diamond was being we were doing like this, brushing it off with a hammer. That's the word I was looking for, a hammer. Such a simple word. I couldn't find it. And that was the first level. Then it's kind of like, okay, you got the diamond. You've kind of hammered it out. Then you kind of need to rip it out of that soil, because it has to become an illumined version of you. That's what I'm teaching, of course. Illumined Ascension, Illumined Union. It kind of has to be claimed, that precious gem inside. And if it's not going to be claimed, even as a diamond, it will lie in that soil and not fully ever knowing about itself and its precious shine. It's kind of like, even if you do lots of spiritual work, but you don't take that last final step of unveiling all that which is around you, still not going to happen. I know. We can't cheat, right? All these steps are important. So I'm going to show you the cards first. The first one is the King of Angels, or the King of Swords, and it says Peaceful Warrior. And And it looks like, the reasonable, rational part of us, the intellectual mind, the king of the intellect, the one who likes to have all the facts checked and, be like this all the time. And it's almost like that needing to know before we act. But remember, the truth about spirit is you first need to see it. Then you make it a fact. It's not like I need facts to verify and then I will decide. It's not like that, actually. Not for spirit beings. And then we have 5 of stars diversity, which is also in most tarot cases the 5 of wands, meaning sometimes friction and opposition of desire and clashing of wills and desires, sometimes within or with others. Like I said, like false loyalties, like you're loyal to something, but it doesn't serve you. There's no more growth to that. And it drains you and it depletes your soul and it makes you suffer in silence in most cases. See, the 10 of trees, this is the 10 of earth. Here it says loyalty. But for me here, I felt this card as a false loyalty. A loyalty that became so much an addiction. It became a codependent loyalty. It's not that devotion. Devotion is free. In a state when you're devoting yourself, to spirit, to another, you're actually always devoting through the presence of spirit. You're not devoting from the addicted, material, possessive nature. And when you can notice that about yourself, you're going to realize through that introspection what is actually real and what is false. What is built on true ground and what is built on false ground. An identity that you built around yourself. And 10 of trees, 10 of earth, meaning all that you've already built, the castle you already built for yourself, but somehow there's an element that's false. And then we have that page of stars, that curiosity I was talking about. And this is what, even with all that was piled up, all the abundance, all that we have, it can still feel superficial at times if it's not been created through the soul. And I'll live through the soul. Maybe the soul lived an internal life. But the soul in this realm, remember, the soul wants to be as within, so without. The soul wants to have Illumined Union at its finest. Those of you who resonate with that. So the soul wants to have an experience where its essence can cultivate and push through this world. That's my desire. My only desire is that I would be, as long as I'm here, that I'd be able, truly able to pierce through this realm of whatever the difficulties and always remain in my essence. And I'm doing it. I'll tell you, I'm doing it because I'm noticing how it's happening, especially now with the healing of this transgression. And then it's this awakening, the emergence, which is also the judgment card, which is that aha, epiphany is like the divine coming and saying, you have to see beyond that. The house of brick walls. And then we have the 10 of stars, hoarding. It's also spiritual beliefs and ideas we've been hoarding about ourselves. And we think, well, that's me. That's my spirituality. It's also on the path of Illumined Union and Ascension. It can also be a roadblock. There's so many pitfalls. You don't even know, when you really go deep, you're going to see, and eventually you're just going to let them all fall off. You don't even have to try hard. You just can have an intention. It all begins with that intention. So people who are afraid to make those first steps have to realize, first you just have to know what you want. You just have to choose it and say, I'm ready, and pray to the divine that it gives you the opportunity to be able to resolve that physically as well. And that's the next card, the Queen of Trees, the Nurturer, or the Queen of Physical Realm, the Queen of Earth. That, like choosing instead that which nurtures us, not that which confines us or feels detrimental for our growth. And then we have the universe expansion. So this is what makes her soul soar and thrive, That's when we get it. When we are able to bring that back to the earth embodiment, that our soul can be anchored through the field of earth, not just internal. We have lots of these fantasies, how we are as an inner being. And we say, well, I'm a soul anyway. I don't need to have that physically. But in Illumined Union, yes, you do, because you're learning to master the breaking through, the soul piercing through your body and fully fusing itself, merging with your physical embodiment. And the next one is the King of Stars, the Alchemist. So with this step, the alchemy begins. The alchemy of soul only begins here, not before, right? Now we have the shadow, the fear. And when this alchemy starts happening for you, a tremendous amount of fear will start coming out. This is actually a good thing. Don't question that stage. Simply embrace it and say, I embrace this. I'm not going to, run away from it anymore. And then we have the Ace of Trees, abundance. This is what, when the devil is dealt with, the double-horned creature, then we can return to that inner state where abundance is not the 10 of earth, which is like something we've piled up and it's static. It's always an ace. It's always an ace of earth. Every day you begin again. You know, people who've been in jobs or relationships for years and years, they don't even get to choose their days, day by day. They're just living that, you know, that movie, Groundhog Day. It's repeated all over until the main character gets the lesson of what they're doing wrong. Well, wrong is not a right usage of word, but still. So then we have the 9 of Angels. The 9 of Air is often also seen as swords as difficult card, you know, like that. The trap fear, which is basically an illusion. It's not real. It's not like sometimes we have foundational fear. This is unfounded fear. And we we actually have here this being called the guardian. So we're being assisted. And in those weakest moments of the self, we forget that we're assisted, you know. And the last one, you see, this is the journey towards love. The 13-1 was love. The Ace of Hearts, the love. And this is kind of like the main journey through which all the souls that are returning to the heart of the mother are needing to walk. And everyone will walk it in their own way. Some might need years. Some might need lifetimes. Some are so close. They just need that final resolution. And for me, it was the transgression that topped it off. No, the top, you know, on top of it all that happened. And then it tipped off that which became a pinnacle of who I thought I am. And that's what it took for me, because I'm a major, huge being, and I've chosen that. But in a way, for someone, it might be just something simple as leaving a circumstance that it's no longer fulfilling, and their soul is crying out for a new life. And it deserves that, and it wants that. So it's different things, right, for different people. For me, that's what it shook me. And since that, starting to heal that and coming back to myself, feeling that youthful presence every day, you know, just all day. I'm in this mischievous, playful, goofy nature of mine. This is my true nature. This is how my child is. My inner child, I'm going to know when I'm in my magical, divine child self, not the wounded one. When I'm constantly just without a reason so happy and smiling and seeing these synchronicities and making these goofy things and pictures and jokes, and there's no one needing to be there. It's just like you're doing this for yourself. And, you know, things like, I know that this is very energy present when you know, they're kind of like nagging at you. And sometimes you would like get your hair tangled or something, and you're laughing because it's like, it's getting your attention. And when you're in that magical space, everything will be this hilarious approach, this beautiful appreciation of the humanness, you know, like today, for example, I was like, I spit on my shoe and then I had to go to the river and kind of wash it off. And it was like, it was funny. I laughed, you know, and then I took these, I love to do these, you know, when you throw flat stones into the river and they kind of jump off the surface. I love doing that. I know, I'm addicted to that. And it's just, when the stone is thrown in, when it's gliding through the water, I can feel it. I can feel the gliding in my body, and it's just amazing. All those feelings, all that wants to be expressed and poured into the vessel, the cup that is the human. And there's no other way than surrender and trusting love, and trusting that even when it's difficult, when we're going through these purging stages and the unveiling, trust love. Love takes us through this, not just the light. And if nothing else that works for you, simply say, love holds me. I know I'm held by love. I know I'm loved so much, beyond measure. So the last thing we're going to do is going to do a prayer. Very simple and sweet. Okay, let's do it together. The Spirit of God, the Spirit of Cosmic Christ within me that I am. And I am Aurea. I am illumined being. I am illumined truth. I am illumined love. On this day, I ask you, beloved one, beloved God of all life, the life force, the spark that is pure magic that pours itself through all of us. I ask you to be on the lookout and to be there for all who are still in need, who are perhaps suffering in silence and not knowing what steps to take to truly cultivate and embody their soul being. And that all the longing would be met in the physical human form, that we would acknowledge and recognize this longing that the human heart of ours holds inside, and not brush it aside and say it's not important. I'm only here for this and that. I'm only here to serve. I'm only here to help others. I'm only here to have a job or, whatever. Please work on the behalf of all that's yearning for more life, for more vitality, for feeling more alive, thriving through life. Work your magic of the union of polarities of masculine and feminine Christ, that it moves through all these aspects of life that are still yearning to be moved by you, God, by you, the great divine storyteller, the maker of this beautiful creation, the mother of life, singing a joyful song and dancing this dance of life with all these souls that are longing and yearning for more, that are perhaps seeking the path of true organic ascension and perhaps cannot recognize it yet in their life as it presents itself. Work on the behalf of all who are still searching and all who feel lost, temporarily or in a greater sense. Be with all of us in this moment and help those of us who are here as swirling vortices, helping others and guiding them in simply being ourselves, to drop the masks and pretenses of ego that have outdated ideas about attachments to these outcomes, and help us to return back to love, to union with ourselves, to union with others and all that we love. To know that life at its finest is us trusting the mother, trusting love to take us through life, to embrace our highest potential and path, and knowing that no journey has ever been in vain, but that yet still a new journey is beginning. And give us, please, courage and perseverance to know how to remain in this current embodied purpose for ourselves and for others, for we are all one. Thank you, beloved God I Am, and the cosmic Christ, and all the light beings, all the illumined beings who are assisting us on this path, on this journey back to love. And now I want to thank all of you for being here and watching. Thank you. Thank you. As always, so much love, wisdom, and power.